those moments are so life-changing that they are worth beating the crap out of yourself for a year to have them. And it's crazy to think that, but that's really why I do it. Like those moments, there's nothing more peaceful for me than those moments.
Sara Hastreiter is on a mission to become the first woman in history to sail the 7 seas and climb the 7 summits. As you'll see from this interview, she's incredibly inspiring and her perspective is really refreshing. She knows her limits, and that means she knows when it's time to stop and take a break, but she also really knows when it's time to push on. Sorry, did you have to sit in the waiting room for a minute there? My computer was doing funny things.
Not more than 30 seconds, not a problem.
Because I was like, I'm admitting you. Why do you? And it kept saying, do you want to let her in? I was like, I really want to let her in. How's it going with you?
Good. It's been, an interesting few months, really. I had a training period in France. I was over there from January, and then kind of just going through the process of being in quarantine there as well. So I still had a boat there because the initial plan was to do the AG2R. And so I didn't want to leave the boat because that was still my responsibility. And I kind of didn't want to rush to the airport at the maddening time of mid-March, So I just held tight and used the time constructively and, took a solid rest and read a lot of books and really just enjoyed my own company.
So where are you at the moment? What I really would love to talk to you about is your 7 seas and 7 summits. I know you've done the 7 seas, which is a big tick. Where are you with that challenge?
So last year I climbed Denali. That was a really, really big challenge for me. And in terms of my approach to the 7 summits, I was actually leaving that peak for last because it's a really, really intimidating peak. And for some reason, it intimidated me more than Everest. But financially speaking, it was the next most obtainable mountain for me to try and achieve. The last 3 I have are just so much more expensive that I couldn't fund them on my own. So I had some partnerships and sponsorship for Denali, and it was, that was the option, even though I really had wanted to do Everest this last year. So I went up to Denali. That was peak number 4. And I ended up developing a chest infection, which happened really, really late in the expedition, from someone else who actually got sick. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was yet because it hadn't fully taken hold. It was kind of like those first few days of you getting sick where you have a fever and you feel really run down. But I was like trying to summit a mountain after being there for 17 days. So I felt particularly run down. And, there's a lot of things to learn from that process. Of course, I would have much rather just gone through all that pain and financial and energy expenditure once and achieved it. But, it was time to turn around at 19,000 feet about halfway through summit day. And to me, there wasn't really any other option, to keep going and become incapacitated or put other people at risk, because that to me is not an option. So if you're still cognizant enough to be aware that you're not doing well enough, so you should turn around. So that's where I'm at with the mountains. I think because of some of the sailing goals I have right now, I won't be able to go back to Denali right away or Everest because they're just too physically taxing. But there's 2 others, Antarctica and Karsten's Pyramid in Indonesia, which I would love to achieve. I would love to climb another mountain in the next year, at least.
The way you're talking about it is incredible, and I really applaud you with what happened with you on Denali, because if you had found some way to do it, it probably wouldn't have felt quite right, because it would have put you under so much strain and possibly affected other people, and it will feel so much sweeter when you do complete it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You see a lot of people on mountains in particular that achieve things, but they are getting drugged up or drugged down by other people. They're putting other people at risk consciously. They're threatening to sue people or fight people. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, how can you walk away from the situation and be proud of your accomplishment? And when you did it with that kind of behavior. So to me, like, there is some, level of self-respect and, doing things in a meaningful way, doing the right thing for yourself and for others. It's not to me, it's not an environment to be selfish in, because even if you're climbing solo, other people get involved in those situations, whether they want to or not oftentimes. Even if that just means, you're laying over the one path for people to get up or down, or that other guides have to step away from their clients to help other people. I mean, it's a tricky situation at those altitudes, but yeah, personal responsibility is very important in those environments.
Well, personal responsibility is something you must have to deal with all the time with what you do as an adventurer, whether you're sailing offshore or when you're climbing mountains. But what you're trying to attempt is huge. You'd be the first female to ever sail the 7 seas and climb the 7 summits. So give me a little overview on how that came about, because it's a huge thing that you're trying to achieve.
After I did the Volvo with SCA, we kept the project going for about 6 months with SCA as a partner, and we kind of found out September of that year, which I guess was 2015, that they would no longer be moving forward with us. And that was really upsetting, because I think we all kind of held on to the idea that it would be a 2-campaign program. And SCA had their reasons for stepping away. They'd been a part of the project for 5 years, and they were really, really dedicated to it. And after they stepped away, we kind of had to regroup as a group of female sailors. And, what people don't often realize is a situation like SCA was brought together by a management company who found the sponsorship and then selected the sailors. So we were hired sailors. We weren't, accountants and business people who, found the money ourselves and then put an adventure together. So, there was a lot of skill sets that, we had to acquire or ask for help with. And a lot of women from that campaign put in a lot of effort to try to find sponsorship again. And we had a deadline. It's hard to think now what that was. I think it was January 2017, that if we hadn't found money at that point, it pretty much, we were giving up the hunting for sponsorship challenge, and people were going to just try to be a part of other teams. So just prior to that, I had gone to Nepal and done a trek up to Everest Base Camp, and I'm someone who's very goal orientated. And so for me to not be sure if the Volvo was going to be a possibility again, and just not really having like that big thing in my life that I always do. After coming back from Nepal, I just really thought about it, and I was like, I could approach climbing Everest in the same way as I've approached these other big goals in my life. And I didn't really want to say it out loud yet, so I really just looked at the ways that I could, spend a couple of years training, and what other peaks that I would climb, and how I would go about doing it. And so that was really where it came from, is I just wanted a big challenge. I wanted something as big as the Volvo was for me. And to me, doing, the Volvo is called the Everest of sailing. And so for me, I thought that was a really, great pairing, and a equally huge challenge. And so I set that as my next goal. And then as I started looking for sponsorship and just kind of discussing the narrative of what I would like to do, it was suggested to me that it wasn't big enough, because Everest has been climbed and the Volvo's been done. And even those two things together weren't quite enough, which is really overwhelming to think about, that those things aren't enough together. So I just looked at the path that my training had laid out, and I thought, well, my plan is to actually eventually climb 5 of the 7 summits to train for Everest. So I just wondered if anyone had ever done all the oceans and the mountains. And I found one individual, an American man, who has done that. And that was just a couple years ago. And no females and no other people have done it. So it's obviously a huge undertaking and endeavor. And to me, I'm just like at my heart, really, I love exploring. And I love the idea of being in the most extreme corners on the planet. And, it really appeals, to my soul and my, childhood ambitions of, being an adventurer. And so I think that's what really led me down the path, and laying out those steps of one mountain at a time and how to achieve each one of those. And so, yeah, gives me plenty of goals.
I love how it's organically happened when you were at base camp and you started thinking this could happen, this could happen. I can't believe that Everest and the Volvo isn't enough. That's huge. There's huge amounts of things from very different extremes, and both very extreme. So to me, as you've been setting it out, you haven't had any of this handed to you. You have to be totally self-driven, totally determined, and I'm sure it's all consuming. So how's that for you, particularly as we were talking about before, the world stopped for a little while. So how's that been for you to cope with?
My dad and I are actually discussing this last night. I think it's sometimes you can surprise yourself to see how self-driven, we're capable of. And, there was no one holding me accountable for 3 years on all of these projects and training. And, and last year before going to Denali, like I was at the gym 3 hours a day for 8 months, just training. And I was recovering from a knee surgery, which is why it was, so intense. But, it's like, where does that come from? And it's just that, motivation to try to achieve my goals. And I think because none of it's handed to me, and I was working as a professional sailor to have money to climb the mountains, it was my own accountability to myself, because I was putting in the work to have the funds to do it. And I was putting in the work to be able to be as ready as possible once I got to the mountains. And if I failed to reach the summit, I didn't want it to be something that I could have, done better beforehand. And that's my biggest kind of issue, is just making sure that my failures come from other variables other than the things that I can try to do my best or apply my best towards.
And when you take that approach from the start, when you do achieve it, it will be so much sweeter because everything you did was yourself. I'm sure you get help on the way, but the drive, it all comes from you. So when you do achieve it, it's going to feel amazing. And huge praise to you for doing it. You mentioned then that you were in the gym 3 hours a day for 8 months. That's an insane amount of exercise. So how important is fitness to you? And when you're doing your fitness, is it still that goal you're thinking of? This hurts because I'm doing this. How do you do that mentally?
Well, the biggest part of it, again, is just that something like training is something that you can prepare yourself before you go to these places. If you show up and you're not in shape, that's your fault. And when I am exercising, I am thinking like, this is really hard, but when I do it in this environment, it's going to be much harder. And this is why I'm pushing so hard here. And, a lot of the time it's almost a mental thing as well, just to see that like, you left the house, you got to the bottom of the ski hill in the dark at 8 p.m. at night, and you're going to go like do, a ski randonnée session by yourself, and just showing up for yourself, as strange as that sounds. And sometimes it's not about the level of exertion. Sometimes it's just showing up, and you can be proud of that. And I've literally had days where I've gone to the gym and I've started kind of warming up and I've been like, no, I don't want to be here today. But that's okay. You've got to listen to your body as well. But if you want to achieve big things, you've really got to push yourself in a lot of different directions. And so if you're doing that beforehand, I think it helps you achieve those things in the moment as well.
Because there will be times when you're trying to achieve these things when you won't feel like it. But when you're up a mountain, you don't really have any other choice.
Yeah, which bless it, because, a lot of those situations, especially sailing offshore as well, I think that's how we're able to push through a lot of those different situations is we just don't really have a choice. You know, you can't you can't stop and sit down, on the side of the mountain and be like, I'm too tired to get to my tent, because you're going to freeze to death, and when we're sailing, there's a lot of situations that we have to deal with in the moment, even if we're really tired or exhausted, because, the boat is in jeopardy, or all of us are in jeopardy because of the situation. And so there's that part of us that clicks in, that gives us another level of push and drive, thankfully, because if we had to just, you know, like achieve it ourselves without that subconscious motivation that drives us to stay alive, it would be really, really too hard a lot of the time. It's funny where you end up applying that. Like this is ridiculous, but sometimes, like, if I can't get a jar open or something like that, I'll think, well, could you get the jar open if your life depended on it? And then I'm able to get the jar open.
That's
I don't know
really good.
why I do that, but yeah, that's what I apply with my experience from sailing in the mountains.
That's really good advice. I can just imagine you go into a kitchen cupboard being like, right jar.
Look, this has to happen.
Just got to wait for that to kick in.
Yeah. I just have to be scared for my life before I'll get out of bed, and then I'll hop right up.
Oh, you make it sound so easy. I just need to be scared for my life. So what have you, with all your experiences and all your challenges that so many people haven't done, would dream to do, and you're striving to achieve, what are you learning about yourself?
I just have different priorities to a lot of people, and I think that's okay. I mean, as long as people respect the fact that I'm achieving the things that I find important and that I put my energy towards, and for other people that might be, raising a family, or, losing 20 pounds. And I think they're all equally commendable. It's just, this happens to be the thing that I want to achieve, and the thing that I'm driving towards. And, if that means that I don't end up having a traditional life, that's okay with me. Or if my traditional life starts at, post 40, that's okay too. So I think, the biggest thing to do is be gentle with yourself through all of these different situations, because there are good days and bad days, and you have to really be conscious of that. So I think one of the biggest things I've learned over time is just that you have to check in with yourself. You can't let all of the things around you be so loud that you're not having conversations with yourself about, you've really got to focus on things like your fatigue level. You need to recognize the things that you need in your life as much as you recognize, when you're competing, like, I need electrolytes right now. I need to have some protein. I need to have, I need to sleep for 20 minutes. Like, you're always really sensitive to those types of needs, but I think the other internal needs are really important as well. Like, I need time with my family. I need a long chat with one of my girlfriends. Those things are important too.
I love that. When you're talking about what you've learned in a life or death situation, and then when you bring it back to sometimes I just need to talk to someone, and that's what we can all relate to. Your attempt is the first female to do this. Is that very important to you, that you're showing other women an inspirational message that there's things out there that can be done? It doesn't matter if you're male or female.
Yeah, I think that narrative kind of started with Team SCA. I mean, I'm so fond of that campaign, like the messaging and what we were able to achieve, and just, the camaraderie along the way. And it was an experience I really, really enjoyed. I loved sailing with women. I really did. And I think what's great about this next step for me is that we were competing against the men as the girls, and there was nothing wrong with us calling ourselves the girls. We didn't mind. People were like, they're women. You're like, whatever. But this next narrative is really just, men and women are equal. And in this situation on this boat, the boat has to operate the same, whether I'm awake or my partner's awake. And, I think that is where the conversation should go, is to show that women are able to achieve these things, but then showing, that equality. rather than continuing to point out the differences. I think it really is kind of the next step in the feminist agenda in a lot of ways, is to show equality rather than talking about the need for it. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So we've spoken a little bit about what you have achieved and what your challenges are. Can we just talk a little bit about the human element? When you've sailed around the world, incredibly grueling conditions, you've climbed peaks that, not only hard conditions, but air is a lot lighter up there and it's harder to breathe. Can you just give me a little human aspect of the things that you've gone through?
Something again that my dad and I were talking about last night is the term endurance sports. And that doesn't mean that I have like a really amazing cardiovascular system. It means I can like put up with really terrible situations for an extended period of time, and potentially hold out longer than a normal person, and that's really, you're enduring a lot of that. To say that it's sunshine and roses all the time is a lie. It's not a cruise. It's not a stroll. These things are so hard. They really, really are. And, but there is a part of it when you're within them that the necessity of what you need to do forces you through those processes a lot of the time. And there's these really peaceful, fulfilling moments that, where you're sailing at a particular angle and everything's just right for the moment. You get to enjoy, either just going really fast or being in the Southern Ocean, or enjoying the companionship of, the girls around you, and or being on a mountain and it, the sun is out and it's warm, and, you just finished for the day and you can't believe you've carried your body one step at a time to 18,000 feet or 20,000 feet or whatever it is. And those moments are so life-changing that they are worth beating the crap out of yourself for a year to have them. And it's crazy to think that, but that's really why I do it. Like those moments, there's nothing more peaceful for me than those moments. The rest of the time I'm really busy overanalyzing and overthinking everything. And in those situations, I can just be, I can exist. I overthink for about 9 months, so I can go on a mountain for 20 days and just be there. It's crazy, but that's what I experience when doing those things.
Oh, that's fascinating. That has given me goosebumps. You won't be able to see, but where you were describing it like that is wonderful. And you can see how it's all so incredibly worth it, even though what you've gone through has been so hard. And I suppose you can really only enjoy the ups when you've experienced the downs. And that's what you have to go through when you're doing these endurance things. I think, as you said there, you can just suffer longer than other people and still come on the other side.
Yeah. And it's something like I always look around at the people around me, my teammates or the people I'm climbing with, and I think, oh my God, like they're so strong and they're so tough. I can't believe they're there. And I just really admire them. And, I don't even think half the time like, oh, I'm doing the same thing that they are. It's just like, yeah, some of the women on SCA just, I really admired them and just how tough they were, like really just tough women. Really impressive.
Yeah, I like that though, because you were there at the same time. So that means you're very tough and impressive. And you were saying before about being kind to yourself. It's like being in the moment and being like, oh, I'm here too. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that message, being kind and everything that you've been achieving, what would you say to people that are looking for a form of inspiration, be it big, small, whatever it is for them, whatever they believe in? What would you say to them as a little boost to go out and get it?
One of the things that people end up suffering with is that we're lucky enough to be in a society where most things we want, we're able to have very quickly. And that's not the way that goals happen. They don't happen quickly. And I think a lot of people get frustrated with the process of achieving things. So you have to understand that, whether it's you know, you want to inspire yourself or inspire others, or you're looking for inspiration, you know, you've got to break things down and just set one thing at a time. I used to say, like with my climbing project, I needed to do something every single day that contributed towards the project, whether it was sending out sponsorship emails or going to the gym or, you know, making that phone call or reaching out to that stranger. It is plausible. You know, you climb a mountain by putting one foot in front of the other. You don't say, I want to climb this mountain, land at the bottom, and then stand at the top without anything in between. You know, you have to break things down. So my advice to people is just to realize that goals, if they're real, they're not easily achieved. And it's not something to be intimidated by. It's just something to break down and figure out how to achieve them.
Oh, I really love that. That's so inspiring. You've given me such a boost. It's been wonderful. And just one last thing, Sarah, you had an award recently, didn't you, with Elevation Outdoors magazine. So tell me a bit about that. I know you were really, really proud of that, as you should be.
Yeah, you know, the thing I was most excited about with that is just that I'm from Wyoming in the middle of the country. And because I kind of left in about 2008 to continue traveling, and then I started sailing. And obviously, to be in sailing, I'm on the coast or near the coast all the time, or I'm in Europe, and it's hard for me to get back to Wyoming. But I'm so fond of where I'm from and really proud to be from there. And so to have like regional recognition for the things that I've been applying myself towards when I've, you know, often felt very separated from it, that was really nice for me. So it's a regional award that goes out every year. And some of the people that were on my list are like mega super rock stars and, you know, people we all watch documentaries about. So I was just happy to share the list with them. And I guess enough people from Wyoming decided to vote online, and I ended up winning it. So I was tickled.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's because you're a mega rock star on the list as well. This is what we were talking about. Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm so pleased to meet you, and thank you for being so quick to say yes for me to interview you, because what I'm trying to do is put inspiring messages out there for people that are doing these things, to inspire other people to do things big or small, and me as well. I mean, I've been loving hearing all these messages. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think it's such a great time to share these types of stories, and people have the time to sit down and listen. So, you know, good on you for being motivated to get these stories out there and take the time to ask the questions.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. Well, as you say, it has been good. People have been available, and actually people have been very willing. So it's nice, and it's nice to share these things. And you learn so many different things. What you've said to me today is amazing. It's just a different take on things, a different perspective on life and doing things. And yeah, so I've absolutely loved talking to you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
See you soon in real life.
Yeah, take care. Have a great day.
Good luck with everything. Thanks. Bye. If you enjoyed that interview, please do hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already, because I have so many amazing, inspiring people that I'm interviewing week after week. They come out every Thursday, so you don't want to miss it. Next Thursday, I have an interview with Deborah James, also known on social media as Bowel Babe. She's a phenomenal woman. She's a medical marvel, and the way she is living through her stage 4 bowel cancer is so applaudable. Not only that, she has saved countless lives with her commitment to talking so openly about the subject and raising awareness. Fitness is really important to her to keep her body and her mind as healthy as possible, and it's certainly an interview you're going to want to watch.